Tonight we begin not a lecture, but a gentle journey into a way of seeing. A way that turns the face softly toward the quiet spaces within us, where thoughts slow and the heart listens. We'll walk beside Emil Cioran, not to memorize his ideas, but to inhabit the mood his words invite, a lucid, tender honesty about existence. What we explore here is not doctrine. It is an invitation to wonder, to question, and to sense the wisdom that already lives in you like a candle behind the ribs. Our method is simple: stories that breathe, insights that land like feathers, and contemplative questions that speak to the quiet, curious part of the mind. The promise is a shift, subtle but real, from the tightness of existential anxiety toward a calm acceptance of life's uncertainty, a steadier footing even as the ground moves. Welcome to SleepyPhilosopher, a sanctuary for the mind. You are safe here. There is nothing to achieve, nothing to fix. If this path of quiet reflection feels like home, you are warmly invited to subscribe, only if it serves your rest. And perhaps share in the comments where you are listening from and the time on your clock, so we can feel the world breathing together. Let us take a soft breath now, in through the nose and out through the mouth. And with that first breath, our journey begins. We start with a foundation, a feeling many of us know too well, the dilemma of existence, the quiet unease of simply being here. There is a kind of restlessness that hums beneath the day. It does not shout, it lingers, an ache without a wound, a question without a question mark. We might call it existential anxiety, the pervasive discomfort with simply being. Cioran spent long nights in the company of this unease. Insomnia was not merely the absence of sleep for him, but a nighttime lucidity that made every thought feel too awake, as if the lights behind the eyes refused to dim. In 1934, he published his first book, On the Heights of Despair, a young work woven with reflections on insomnia, death, and the agitations of the soul. Imagine him at a window before dawn, the city asleep, the street lamps thinning into a pale horizon. He listens to the clock, but time no longer moves in minutes, only in moods. He walks the room slowly, the floorboards remembering each step. There is no solution to chase, only the taste of wakefulness itself, raw and bright, and the question it presses against the heart. How do we bear the miracle and the burden of being alive? And so this ancient unease finds its echo in our own lives. Today we are carried by currents faster than our breath. The glow of the screen follows us into night, messages multiply, plans shift, certainties fray. We scroll, refresh, compare, and forecast, as if the right arrangement of information could finally quiet the tremor within. We fear missing the moment, and at the same time, fear choosing the wrong one. Anxiety, then, becomes a kind of weather, changeable, insistent, arriving without our consent. And yet in Cioran's wakeful hours there is a strange instruction. Perhaps the discomfort does not signal failure, but contact. Contact with life's unfinalized nature, with a world that never signs a contract guaranteeing tomorrow. The mind wants assurances, but life offers tides. When we stop fighting the tide, we learn to float. So let us try a simple experiment together. What if life's discomforts are not errors to be fixed, but the body's honest response to uncertainty itself? Feel your breath move in and out. Notice one place of gentle tension, the jaw, the shoulders, the heart's doorway. Allow it to soften by just a fraction, as if loosening a knot with warm hands. Whisper inwardly, "I don't have to know right now." Let that phrase drift like a small boat on a wide lake. Imagine the unknown not as a cliff, but as mist rising from water at dawn, shifting, revealing, never threatening the shore beneath your feet. If anxiety is weather, you are the sky, spacious enough to hold passing storms. As you rest, hold this question lightly. If uncertainty is woven into life, what new kindness could you offer yourself the next time unease visits? Allow this question to sit quietly with you as we continue, step by gentle step, into the night's deeper calm. Tonight we step a little closer to a phrase that sounds almost playful in its honesty: the inconvenience of existence. Cioran invites us to notice that life is not designed to obey our preferences, and that this is not a mistake in the pattern, it is the pattern. What if we were to stop arguing with the creaks and drafts of being alive, and simply acknowledge them as part of the house we live in? In our last chapter, we practiced resting with unease, letting it float through rather than wrestling it into submission. Here we tilt a little further. We agree, gently, that the world is not obliged to be convenient, and we let our shoulders loosen around that truth. Cioran once treated this as a kind of axiom, an underlying assumption, not a problem to be fixed. If existence will not be smooth to our liking, perhaps our hands can become softer, our grip less tight, our breath a little deeper. Let us take one soft inhale together, and on the exhale, release the demand that tonight be any different from what it is. There is a scene that helps us feel this more than understand it. In 1937, Cioran moved to the Latin Quarter of Paris, a maze of narrow streets where shutters blink in the morning and worn stairways remember every footstep. He chose a quiet seclusion there, sharing his life with Simone Bauer and letting the days unfold without spectacle. Imagine the small apartment, a desk by a window, a kettle murmuring, the soft scrape of a chair on old wood. Outside, a bicycle bell, then silence, a curtain stirring, an unhurried page turned. In this stillness, he learned to host the restlessness rather than flee it, to sit with the draft that slips under the door and call it weather, not failure. From this life of chosen quiet, new language emerged. He began writing in French, and in 1949 published a book called Précis de Décomposition, a dark bouquet of aphorisms gathered from long, attentive hours. It is as if he accepted that the hinges of life would always creak, and decided to listen for their music. And so this old wisdom finds its echo in our own lives whenever a plan unravels in our hands. The position you counted on vanishes overnight, A relationship changes direction without asking your permission. A message you hoped for doesn't arrive or arrives with a different tone. Our days are full of these small dissonances. The calendar crossed by an unexpected line, the train that waits between stations, the conversation that turns a corner we didn't see. We can spend our energy smoothing every wrinkle, insisting the fabric lie flat. Or we can breathe into the folds and let them be part of the garment. Notice how acceptance here is not resignation. It is a posture like sitting back into a seat that supports your spine so you can meet the world with steadier hands. When a role ends, perhaps another skill begins to glow at the edges. When a bond loosens, a wider field of attention opens. The inconvenience of existence, seen clearly, becomes a teacher of flexibility, asking us to float when the river bends rather than brace and bruise against the bank. As you settle more deeply into rest, let a simple practice arrive. Call to mind one small inconvenience from today, just one. Notice where it lands in the body, the jaw, the chest, the belly. Soften there by a fraction, and imagine you are opening a palm around it. Whisper inwardly, "This too belongs." Then ask without strain, "If I stop arguing with this, what quiet paths appear?" Perhaps it is as modest as stepping outside for 2 breaths of evening air, or as simple as sending a gentle message rather than a perfect one. Perhaps it is just the decision to be kind to the part of you that had other plans. Allow this question to sit beside you like a companionable silence. How might accepting life's inherent chaos open a doorway to peace, not later, but now? Let the body answer first. And as you drift, remember, we are not here to perfect the world, only to meet it with a steady gaze and an unhurried breath. Tonight, our shared path turns toward a gentle paradox, that a deeper kind of freedom appears when we stop resisting what is fixed. Not resignation, not giving up, but a calm untying of the inner fist that clenches at the immovable. Cioran points us here with an ironic smile, inviting us to notice that some aspects of life act like mountain rock, solid, unmoved by our wishes, while other aspects are like water, responsive and free. When we press our forehead against the rock and call it rebellion, we end up bruised and weary. Yet when we line with the slope, we discover an unexpected ease, a space to move, to choose, to breathe. What if freedom is not the absence of limits, but the art of moving beautifully among them? Let us take a soft breath together, letting that question drift through us like evening air. There is a small, imagined scene of Cioran in a Paris cafe, late, the glass catching reflections of streetlight. A friend challenges him, "Isn't freedom the power to break every chain?" He laughs not unkindly and answers with a story of a violinist. The musician finds freedom not outside the strings, but by tuning them, by working inside the instrument's taut boundaries to release a living music. Cioran loved aphorisms because they could hold tension without forcing a final doctrine. In The Trouble with Being Born, published in 1973, he assembled brief sparks that could even contradict one another without apology. He once observed that he could place opposing thoughts side by side, like notes that clash yet make a richer chord. In the cafe, between sips and silences, he gestures to the table's edges. We cannot make the table infinite, he says, but we can choose the game we play upon it, the conversation, the laughter, the shared warmth, the refusal to wound. The paradox glows. Acceptance of the given becomes the doorway to a subtler freedom. And so, this old wisdom finds its echo in our lives today. We want control, we refresh the screen. We set alarms, we negotiate with time. We want things to change, yet we fear the cost of change. Notice how tightness arrives as soon as we demand the wind to blow a different way. A sailor does not scold the wind. They trim the sail and trace a new angle across the water. Some elements are fixed. The past cannot be unwritten. Gravity will not take a night off. Other hearts will choose their own paths. Yet within those boundaries there is space enough to steer. How we speak, where we place attention, what we nourish, which burdens we set down. In this way, acceptance is not a collapsing, but a reorientation, like turning the face to catch the existing light. If you wish, take a slow breath in, feeling the ribcage widen, and let it fall, simple and unforced. Perhaps we can try a small exercise together. Gently name in your mind 3 things in your life that are presently fixed, facts, limits, timings, or truths you cannot change tonight. Say them softly to yourself, as you would greet familiar stones along a path. Now ask in a whisper of curiosity, within and around these, what tiny freedoms are available? A choice of words, a kinder pacing, a boundary that brings rest. Let this question sit with you. In what ways can recognizing fixed elements in life liberate our hearts? Let it settle like a smooth pebble in your pocket, warming with your presence. We will carry it gently as we continue, remembering that even in the company of limits, there is room to move with grace, to breathe without hurry, and to find our way across the night. We have been learning to meet existence as it is, to float with its currents rather than thrash against them. Tonight, we let that acceptance become more finely tuned, like a musician listening for resonance. There is a simple note the Stoics struck again and again. There are things within our care and things beyond it. Our peace grows when we honor the difference. Let us take a soft breath here, in and out, as though we were setting down a heavy bag we no longer need to carry. Imagine this, a quiet morning in the city. The river moves with its own mind. Along the embankment, an old bookseller opens a green stall, lifting wooden doors like wings. In a shallow box, a thin booklet rests, almost weightless. A handbook ready to hand. Its ideas are ancient, yet startlingly fresh. Epictetus taught them. His student Arrian gathered them into a small volume in the early 2nd century, a manual for the heart to practice. Cioran would have smiled at such a text. The Stoic melody, so calm, hums beneath his darker harmonies. It is not a denial of pain, but a craft for navigating it. Distinguish what is yours to guide from what is not, and place your energy with care. Picture him by the river's edge, coat collar turned up to the breeze. He reads a line and glances at the water. The river neither argues nor apologizes. It carries leaves, reflections, and sometimes a small boat, each according to currents that began before any onlooker arrived. He closes the booklet and slips it into his pocket, as though pocketing a compass rather than a creed. The day gathers, bicycles pass, a pigeon tilts its head, a bell rings somewhere out of sight. Fate, the Stoics might say, has its choreography, and our steps need not fight the floor. We have already been practicing something like this together. Acceptance, not as collapse, but as a stance that frees the limbs. Now the Stoic note gives us a tool to place in that open hand. When uncertainty swells, ask gently, what here is mine to shape, and what belongs to the larger weather? And so, this ancient wisdom finds its echo in our world of glowing screens and endless scroll. Notifications arrive like little hailstones, tapping the window of the mind. Algorithms suggest, timelines pull, conversations flare and vanish. Control seems both everywhere and nowhere. In such a climate, the Stoic resonance is mercy. It whispers, choose your attention, you cannot choose the storm. You do not direct the tides of the feed, the moods of strangers, the sudden changes of policy or plan. But you can tend a few quiet levers, where you rest your gaze, the cadence of your breath, the tone in which you answer, the moment you set the device down and look at something that does not glow. Let's try it now in a small way. Breathe in softly, notice your shoulders. Breathe out and let them drop a centimeter. In that tiny descent, you practice the dichotomy of control. The world remained exactly as it was, and yet something within yielded and peace entered by a narrow door. If the mind is a house, the Stoics teach us to organize its rooms. This drawer is for what I can touch, my intention, my speech, my willingness to pause. That drawer is for what I cannot. Other people's interpretations, the weather, the hour the sun will rise tomorrow. Cioran, with his famous Insomnia, recognized the futility of commanding sleep to arrive. The more you order the night to end, the longer it smiles and stays. But you can dim a lamp, soften the breath, release the jaw, and meet wakefulness without war. In that meeting, something softens, not the night itself, but your posture toward it. Think again of the river. We do not shout at water to be less wet or at current to run upstream. We step where our footing holds. We choose a calmer bank. We sit and watch until our inner pace remembers the wider rhythm. The Stoics were not perfectionists of feeling. They were craftsmen of response. Arrian's little manual was not a promise that storms will stop. It was a reminder that an inner oar is always near, small but sufficient to angle the boat a few degrees toward steadiness. Perhaps you have felt it on difficult days when a message arrives with sharp edges. The first impulse leaps, a reply, a defense, a tightening, then a breath. Between the message and your answer there is a hinge. On that hinge, your freedom turns. If we are faithful to the difference, mine to guide, not mine to govern, life opens a narrow path even through dense woods. As you rest here, you might quietly name 2 columns in your mind. In the first, place what is yours tonight. The way you breathe, the looseness of your hands, the kindness you aim at your own thoughts, the choice to pause before speaking. In the second, place what you release. The the pace of other hearts, the shape of tomorrow's weather, the churn of the wider world, the past that has already closed its door. Allow this arrangement to sit like books returned to their shelves. The room feels larger not because we own more, but because we have stopped trying to hold what will not be held. If a fragment of doubt arises, isn't letting go just resignation. Remember our earlier steps. Acceptance is not the end of effort, it is the beginning of wise effort. We do not abandon oars, we stop rowing against mountains. The rest we seek is not a sleep without dreams, but a wakefulness without struggle. So as the river flows in its own time, let us soften our grip where we have no helm and steady our touch where we do. Perhaps we can hold this gentle question as we drift into quieter waters. Where, in your life tonight, can you set down the burden of control that is not truly yours and attend instead to the small, luminous choices that are? Let the question be light as a leaf on the current. Another soft breath. And we go on, a little freer within the same world. Tonight we lean toward a quieter word that often arrives with a shiver: nihilism. Not as a cliff's edge, but as a clearing. In our journey so far, we have learned to host unease, to accept inconvenience, to move with limits rather than against them. Nihilism, as Cioran often breathed through his aphorisms, is the tender recognition that meaning does not have to be strapped to every moment for the moment to be real. When nothing is required to be grand, everything is allowed to be simple. In 1949, with Praxis de Decomposition, he shaped sentences that stripped illusions to their quiet scaffolding, inviting us to notice how much of our suffering grows from forcing the world to confirm our titles, our importance, our planned biographies. Let us listen for nihilism's whisper, not as despair, but as release. When the extra story falls away, the breath remains, the room remains, and our life, unornamented, is still here. Picture an empty theater after a long, glittering performance. The velvet seats exhale, confetti turns dull under the work lights. Costumes hang on a rail backstage: doctor, executive, hero, failure, name tags clipped to each sleeve. The stagehand sweeps in slow arcs. With each pass, the grand narrative of the night loosens, until all that is left is wood underfoot, rope overhead, a single bulb humming. A wardrobe door is left ajar. A mirror reflects nothing but an unclaimed chair. Here nihilism is not a wrecking ball, it is the house lights rising. The roles are still there if needed, but they no longer tyrannize. The theater shows you its true body: dust motes, air, the reliable geometry of beams. And in that unadorned space, the chest softens, because nothing is being asked of you but to be the witness who breathes. And so this ancient, unsettling wisdom finds its echo in our own lives. We dress in labels each morning: job titles, follower counts, family roles, reputations polished like badges. They can be useful coordinates for a map, but when we mistake the map for the walk, we become brittle. Cioran's whisper suggests a small, radical ease. Identify a little less with the label. Keep it in the pocket, not pressed to the skin. Notice the relief in this. An email signature is not a spine. A performance review is not a pulse. From our earlier Stoic practice, we remember the quiet boundary of control. You cannot command the world's applause, but you can decline the inner contract that says your worth depends on it. For one evening, let your biography rest. Turn off the little counters that rank and compare. Step into the plain theater of your room and let the house lights rise. In that clarity, you are not reduced, you are unburdened. Let us try a gentle exercise. Imagine a quiet hallway with a wooden rack. Hanging there are your labels, each stitched onto a coat. Choose one, perhaps the heaviest, and just for now, slip it from your shoulders and place it on the hook. Feel your neck uncoil, your jaw soften, your breath arrive more easily. You are still here, even without that coat. The room has not vanished. The warmth behind your ribs has not dimmed. Ask quietly, who am I for these next 3 breaths without that name? Inhale, sense the simple fact of being. Exhale, allow the story to loosen. Inhale, feel the contact of body against the bed or chair. Exhale, let the mind fall a little more open. Perhaps nihilism's whisper is only this: without the added weight, life is lighter to carry. Allow that thought to rest with you as we continue, coats on the rack, breath steady, presence unadorned. As our path deepens, we arrive at a quieter practice. Detachment, not as indifference, but as the soft unhooking of the heart from whatever burns too hot to hold. Imagine setting a heavy coat on a chair after coming in from the storm. The storm still rages, but the shoulders breathe again. Cioran points us toward a way of being that loosens the grip of passions, not to sterilize life, but to let it flow without tearing us apart. We have already learned to accept what is inconvenient and to host restlessness without resistance. Now we practice the gentle withdrawal that prevents us from being consumed. Detachment is a spaciousness of attention, a little distance between the match and the tinder, a respectful pause that allows the inner weather to change before we act. Let us take a soft breath here, in through the nose, out through the mouth, and feel how even one exhale can return us to a wider view. Tonight we explore how stepping back is a form of care, how letting go of intensity can be an embrace of peace. Picture a solitary figure moving through the Paris streets before the city properly wakes. Iron balconies, shuttered bookstalls by the river, the faint hum of ovens warming in hidden bakeries. He chooses the narrow lanes where footsteps echo, avoiding the avenues already filling with headlines and heat. On a worn bench by the Seine, he sits with the river's steady pull, watching it carry the city's urgency past without demanding anything of him. A notebook rests in his pocket, not to capture the world, but to make room within it. Sentences are pared to bone, each word a lantern rather than a flare. There is no need to debate, to chase, to be seen. Detachment here is not flight, but a deliberate lowering of the volume knob until the inner room becomes audible again. He rises, passes a courtyard where pigeons stitch the morning with small sounds, and returns to a simple room with a chair, a cup, and enough silence to hear his own pulse. The noise remains outside, life remains inside. And so this quiet practice finds its echo in our own lives, in a world that keeps tugging at our sleeves. The feed refreshes, the messages stack, the day's arguments rehearse themselves in our minds as if they cannot end without our verdict. Detachment is the art of closing windows that do not belong to our house. It is setting the device down and letting it sleep before we do. It is choosing not to enter the corridor of a late-night debate. It is noticing that urgency has disguised itself as importance. We learned from the Stoics to discern what is and isn't within our control. Here we add a tender refinement. Even within what we can control, we can choose what we will carry tonight. Perhaps we lower the lamp of attention to a single human-scale circle. The breath, the body resting on fabric, the sound of the room's gentle hum. Like the river, life can pass without our constant paddling. We can sit on the bank and let the current do its work. As you prepare for rest, consider a small ritual of detachment. 1. Choose one stream to stop for the night. Turn a device to airplane mode, or place it in another room, giving your mind a corridor of silence. 2. Write a single looping worry on a slip of paper, fold it once, and set it beneath a cup or stone, entrusting it to tomorrow's daylight. 3. Let one passion cool just a degree. Delay the reply, soften the opinion, let the inner voice say, "Not now, I am resting." Feel what changes inside when you step back half a pace. Does the breath deepen? Does the chest loosen? Allow this question to sit quietly with you. What can I lovingly set down for a few hours so that calm has room to arrive? In this gentle unhooking, we do not abandon life. We make space for it to meet us without strain. May the night carry what you release, and return it in the morning as something lighter, kinder, and easier to hold. We step now into a quieter room of our journey, where the air itself seems to slow and soften. Here, solitude is not a verdict or a punishment, but a gentle practice of being with one's own breath. We have learned to accept inconvenience, to host our restlessness, to engage and disengage with care. Tonight we turn that learning inward, toward a space of still companionship with ourselves. What if solitude could become your sanctuary? Not the ache of loneliness, but the calm of a room where nothing is required and nothing performs, where attention gathers like morning light and spreads quietly across the floor. In solitude, the mind is not forced to be interesting. It is allowed to be honest. We do not flee the world. We meet it without witnesses, and something softens. Let the shoulders lower a little. Let the breath widen slow and arrive. This is the invitation of serenity in solitude, to rest not from life but in it tenderly without commentary. Imagine Paris under a pale sky, rain threading the slate roofs and tapping a patient rhythm on a skylight. A small room spare and steady, a table polished by forearms and thought. Emil Cioran sits in the hush of his self-imposed retreat, not to conquer an idea, but to keep company with it. He doesn't chase sentences. He lets them come like birds that will not be hurried, perching and lifting, pecking at seeds of doubt. He turns to French, distilling experience into lucid fragments, and in that unadorned quiet the aphorisms that would become Praecis de Decomposition take shape, published in 1949, later honored with the Rivarol Prize in 1950. Yet the real prize is not gilded. It is the steady pulse of an afternoon without appointments. A cup cooling nearby. Footfalls passing in the stairwell, then fading. In that modest architecture of silence, a mind that once knew only the fever of insomnia discovers gentler temperatures. The thought no longer burns, it glows. The city goes on, but in this room, time loosens its grip and allows the soul to arrive where it already is. And so, this quiet practice finds its echo in our distracted lives. We are tugged by screens and signals, by the always-on whisper that something urgent is happening elsewhere. Solitude becomes rare, and because it is rare, it can feel unfamiliar. But unfamiliar is not unfriendly. What if we learn to make small rooms of silence within the day, tiny clearings where attention can stand barefooted on the earth? 5 minutes with a warm cup and no input. A short walk without earbuds, letting the world speak in leaves and crosswalks. Tidying a single surface slowly, one gesture at a time. The phone face down beyond reach, while you listen to the gentle geography of your breath. This is the same selective engagement we practiced before, the art of lowering the volume without abandoning the music. We cannot control the street outside, but we can tend the doorway of attention. We can choose a chair by a window, a pen that scratches softly, a plant to water, and let these simple acts become the walls of a sanctuary that travels with us. If you like, try this now. Settle where you are and let your spine find a comfortable uprightness, as if a gentle thread were lifting the crown of your head. Place one hand over the heart and one on the belly. Inhale slowly through the nose for a count of 4, pause for a soft moment, then exhale for a count of 6. Do this 3 times and notice the edges of the room grow kinder. Then ask quietly, in my own company, what becomes audible that noise conceals. Where does my attention settle when no one is watching? What if solitude could become your sanctuary, a place you look forward to entering, even for 10 unrushed minutes? Choose a small ritual for tomorrow, a cup sipped in silence, a page written without purpose, a walk with only the weather for conversation, and let it be your appointment with peace. As you drift toward rest, imagine a garden at dusk, enclosed not by walls but by kindness. You step inside, and the gate closes with a quiet click. The air greets you by name. Stay as long as you need. The world can wait, your breath is already here. We arrive now at a gentle threshold in our journey, where Cioran invites us to see life not as fixed architecture, but as water in motion, a current that never repeats its shape twice. He suggests that tranquility blooms when we acknowledge the fleeting nature of all things, and rather than resisting the flow, we learn its rhythm, its quiet generosity. In his spare, crystalline aphorisms, he often returned to the soft shock of impermanence, and in 1952 he published Syllogisms de l'Amertume, known in English as All Gaul is Divided, where the brevity of each thought mirrors the brevity of moments themselves. There is a peace, he hints, in not asking a wave to remain a statue. We have been practicing this posture together, acceptance, the art of gentle detachment, the solace of solitude, and now we turn to the river that carries all of it, transience. Let us take a soft breath here. And another, noticing how each inhalation arrives, dwells briefly, and then goes on its way. In a quiet city square at dusk, there is an old man who writes poems with water on warm stone. He carries a bamboo brush and a small bucket, and with each slow stroke, characters bloom dark on the pavement, then lighten and vanish into the evening air. Children gather to watch. He does not hurry. The brush rises and falls like a heron's foot touching a pond, leaving ripple patterns that never repeat. A passerby asks why he spends himself on words that will not last. The old man smiles and dips the brush again. Because the stone remembers a little, he says, and my hand learns a lot. As twilight cools the square, the pavement becomes a brief archive of breath and intention. Letters become mist. Then only stone. Then the next poem and the next, written into the same vanishing ledger. Watching him, we feel something both tender and bracing. The heart loosens as it recognizes its own script. The day arrives, brightens, spills, recedes. We are always writing with water. And so this old practice echoes the wisdom we keep circling. Our attempts to press life into permanence can become a quiet violence against the way things are. We save, we back up, we archive, we promise, we immortalize in photos and posts and plans, hoping the future will respect these fences we draw. But the current does not ask our permission to bend. Cioran, with his unflinching sense for the impermanent, invites us to stand beside the water and feel its indifference and its care. To see that flow is not an enemy of meaning. It is the context that makes meaning possible. The melody moves us because it disappears note by note, otherwise it would be a drone. The sky turns our heads because its colors do not hold still. Love touches us because it cannot be stored, it must be met again and again. In our time, the ache for permanence wears modern clothes. We cling to an identity assembled from achievements, to a reputation shaped by distant eyes, to a routine that keeps surprise away. We set guardrails around our days so tightly that the day cannot enter. When something shifts, a job, a relationship, a plan, we feel the ground tilt and call it failure. But from our earlier steps together, we know a different language. Acceptance as an active posture. Detachment as kindness. Solitude as sanctuary. Now transience as teacher. If we let the lesson in, resilience becomes less about hardening and more about porosity. The mountain does not survive the storm by becoming steel. It survives by being itself and letting wind pass through its trees. We too can become a landscape for change, not a barricade. A small practice, if you like. Choose one small thing today that you usually try to extend beyond its life. The last sip of tea. The end of a song. The final line of a message. When it arrives, do nothing extra. No replay, no scroll back, no one more to delay the goodbye. Just breathe once with it. Feel the slight ache. Let it close on its own. Notice what remains. The atmosphere around you may feel larger, as if a window had been cracked open in a crowded room. Another practice. On your next walk, look for what will not be there tomorrow. The puddle that will dry. The chalk drawing on the curb. The fleeting fragrance from a bakery door. Name them softly in your mind, not to possess them, but to bless their passage. You might feel a new steadiness as you do, because when we befriend change at these small scales, the larger turns of life find us already practiced, already listening. The mind may object here, thinking, but if I do not cling, I will lose what matters. Let us answer with a breath. Inhale and feel how receiving happens without grasping. Exhale and feel how releasing does not erase what has been. The breath is a tutor in fidelity without possession. It keeps returning not because we trap it, but because we welcome it freely. Cioran hints that our calm deepens when we stop demanding a forever that life cannot give. What we receive instead is a succession of precise instants, each sufficient when seen clearly. To live this way is not resignation. It is an attentiveness refined by tenderness. We hold what we love as the river holds reflections, completely and for a while. Allow this thought to sit quietly with you. If nothing is fixed, then suffering softens when we stop trying to fix it. We can meet discomfort as a guest, offer it tea, and watch it depart by the same door. We can meet joy the same way, bowing to its arrival and its leaving. Perhaps try this now. Bring to mind something you are holding tightly, a plan, a posture, a story about who you must be. Imagine placing it on a small leaf and setting the leaf on a quiet stream. Watch it drift a little. Notice what loosens in your chest as it moves. You have not discarded it, you have stopped wrestling with it. Stay with one breath of space. As night gathers or morning brightens, wherever you are, consider the possibility that embracing transience makes us not brittle but supple. The tree that bends does not break. The heart that allows change grows more spacious. And the mind that stops insisting on permanence begins to hear a quieter music, one measure at a time, appearing and fading, leaving us calmer for having listened. When you are ready, let the moment be just this moment, and then let it go. Another will arrive right on time. As our journey draws into its quieter harbor, we begin to see how the strands we've gathered weave into one soft fabric. The unease that first visited us was never an enemy, only an honest messenger. Nihilism, once a stark wind, turned into clarity that loosened our grip. And acceptance, patient as evening light, revealed itself not as surrender but as a gentle, steadying hand. Together they teach a single lesson. Life moves in rhythms, and serenity grows when we sway with them. We are not building a fortress tonight. We are learning the older art of floating. When we release the impulse to perfect each moment, our breath finds its own cadence, slower and kinder. We can meet existence as it is, imperfect, luminous, inconvenient, and still feel the warmth of a quiet center. Let us arrive there now, not by force but by soft consent, a smooth inhale, a deeper exhale, and the simple promise to be here with what is, without chasing or resisting. In this resting, Cioran's insights gather like ripples meeting, forming one calm surface that reflects the night sky without needing to control it. Imagine a small boat returning at dusk. The sea has not grown tamer, but the sailor has learned its moods. There were days of sharp waves and nights of blinding salt, moments when the horizon disappeared and the hands trembled on the rope. Yet here near the inlet, the sailor loosens the line and lowers the anchor with a practiced grace. The water still moves, the boat still sways, but there is a hush that arrives when contact is made with the seabed, a felt assurance without any pretense of control. Discomfort becomes a compass that points home rather than a storm to escape. Nihilism, stripped of drama, becomes a clearing where the sky is uncluttered. We can see what matters because so much has fallen away. Acceptance becomes the anchor itself, quiet, weighty, kind. Cioran knew this dance with the void. In 1960, he published History and Utopia, returning to the uneasy truth that our ideals hover over an abyss and still we must live, think, and breathe. The sailor doesn't banish the sea. The sea is the very condition of the journey. He simply learns to meet its sway, trusting the measured pull of the anchor and the night lamp that keeps a circle of gentleness around the deck. And so, this old wisdom finds its echo in our own lives, in the bright hum of screens and the crowded lanes of thought. The day rushes us, alerts, obligations, the soft tyranny of unfinished lists, until our inner waters feel choppy and overlit. Tonight, we practice a different rhythm. We dim what we can, a light, a voice, the self-accusing tone of a thought. We slow what we can, the breath, the jaws holding, the speed of attention. We allow the room to become a harbor and the bed a mooring, not as escape, but as the wise timing of rest. Let the events of the day line up like cargo on a dock. Thank each one for what it brought. Decide gently what to store, what to release back to the tide, and what can wait for morning when the light is kinder. We are not denying the world's urgency. We are learning to place it on a shelf that lets the night do its work. This is reflective calm as a nightly anchor, an unhurried tending to the inner weather so that, no matter how the currents move, there remains a steady hold beneath us. If you'd like, we can shape tonight's reflection into a lullaby softly spoken within. On the next inhale, think here. On the exhale, I rest. Again inhale, nothing to force. Exhale, nothing to flee. One more inhale, I accept the tide. Exhale, I am the shore. Let these lines settle like warm sand around the feet. If a worry rises, greet it as a traveler and offer it a quiet seat. You need not entertain it, only let it be. Perhaps ask tenderly, what small ritual could be my anchor each night? A single breath at the window, a sentence that loosens the knot, a light placed lower than yesterday. Allow this question to sit quietly with you as you drift, without pressure to answer, until the answer hums on its own. In this way, discomfort, clarity, and acceptance hold a lantern together, and the lantern sings. May tonight's reflection be that softly sung lullaby into peace, carrying you toward the wide, kind dark where sleep finds you, and the mind at last can rest. Tonight we gather all our threads and weave them into a single, steady fabric of rest. We have walked together through unease and acceptance, through detachment and tender presence, through the weather of thought and the thin light of wakeful nights. Now we let the ideas soften into practice. Not to fix anything, not to perfect the night, but to settle into a way of meeting it with calm eyes and a quieter heart. Imagine with me a simple truth. Chaos is not a verdict, it is a passing mood of the world. It swirls, it rises, it rains, and then it thins. Beneath it, another truth. You are the sky that holds it. Let us build a place within that remembers this. We will call it the quiet citadel. Picture a hill at the edge of a darkened city, the streets falling silent, the last tram sighing along its rails. On the hill stands a small citadel, not grand, not severe, stone-worn warm by countless dawns. The gate is open, and a gentle wind moves through the archway like a long exhale. Step inside. In the courtyard, a single tree holds the night like a patient friend. Its leaves barely stir, whispering it is enough. To one side a watchtower, to the other a quiet room. You enter the room and find a low bed and a small table. On the table, the candle behind the ribs, our old companion, has been set in a simple bowl. Its flame is steady, not demanding attention, only offering it. Sit for a moment at the edge of the bed. Feel the stone beneath your feet, cool and certain. The storm outside may mutter, but the walls do not resist. They listen, they breathe with you. Inhale softly through the nose for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through the mouth for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again inhale 4. Exhale 6. With each breath, the citadel grows more familiar, like a room in a house you loved as a child and somehow forgot until now. Think of the one who paced the night, whose thoughts rarely slept, and whose words carried the gravity of waking at the hour when the city holds its breath. He learned that peace was not an argument to win, but a posture of acceptance, a way of sitting with what is without demanding that it be otherwise. What we learned with him, we practice here. The mind can host unrest without becoming it. The citadel is that hosting made visible. Its walls are not for war, they are for weather. The watchtower is not for alarm, it is for horizon. The room is not for hiding, it is for rest. And so this ancient image finds its echo in our own lives. The day brings 1,000 small summons, notifications like pebbles against the window pane, responsibilities rising like tide, opinions arriving like sudden gusts. You cannot command the wind, we have learned this. But you can remember where you stand. Tonight, the citadel is a shape for the Stoic wisdom we practiced. Protect what is yours to guide, the breath, the posture, the attention, and let the rest pass like weather beyond the wall. It is also a companion to our detachment. The gate is open, but you choose which visitors are given a chair. It honors our solitude. Here, silence is not lack, it is presence. It bows to transience. Storms come, storms go, the stone remains warm, and the tree resumes its subtle, generous stillness. Let us return to the body. Place one hand gently on the chest, where the little flame lives. Inhale to 4, feeling the rise. Exhale to 6, feeling the soft settling. If there is a knot anywhere, jaw, shoulders, belly, imagine warm hands loosening it, patient as rain smoothing a rope. Thoughts may continue their bright parade, that is fine. In a citadel, you do not chase every footfall. You let the corridor be a corridor, you trust the quiet room. If a memory knocks, acknowledge it as a traveler and offer it a brief seat. When it rises to go, do not follow. If a worry lines on the windowsill, let it look out at the storm a while. You turn toward the candle. We learn to float rather than to fortify. Here, floating is an inner architecture, walls made of breath, gates made of consent, floors made of patience. Now listen. Somewhere beyond the hill, the world continues in its unfinished sentences. The clock whose time moves in moods will keep its private tempo. But within, the lights behind the eyes dim to embers. The storm learns your stillness. With each unhurried exhale, you teach the night a gentler pace. If you like, imagine the watchtower holding a small bell. It rings not for alarm, but for breaths. Inhale 4, exhale 6. With 10 such rounds, the body remembers. With 20, the mind believes. With 30, sleep begins to thread itself quietly through the loom of your ribs. Perhaps ask as we close, could this mental sanctuary travel with you into each night? Could the citadel become a habit of attention, a way of being that does not argue with the storm, does not deny it, and does not retreat from life, but meets it with the soft authority of a steady flame? Allow the question to sit beside you like a friendly companion, no need to answer aloud. Tonight is only an experiment in kindness. If you wake later, return to the gate, to the tree, to the room. Inhale 4. Exhale 6. Let the walls listen with you. Let the candle keep watch. Nothing to achieve. Nothing to fix. Only resting in the place we have built together, where acceptance becomes warmth and attention becomes shelter. May this quiet citadel remind you that even in the inconvenience of existence, there is a gentle art to being here. And as you drift, know that the hill will be here tomorrow, and the gate will open at your approach, as naturally as breath. Sleep well, traveler of the night. The world can wait, the sky is holding it. The candle is near. You are home.